Hi there, I'm Mark Wilson, and welcome to Paradise. Over the next half hour, we're going to bring you some of the best and worst of what's making waves out here on the waters of Tampa Bay. Want to find out how to finally catch a tarpon? See some of the most exotic locations maybe for shelling? Concerned about the devastating effects of red tide here on Tampa Bay? We've got a FOX13 investigation you won't want to miss. But first, when Hurricane Irma roared through in 2017, causing billions of dollars in damage, it ripped a hole right in the middle of one of our most beloved Bay Area barrier reefs. But believe it or not, it actually has done quite a bit of good for the entire marine environment nearby.
Our marine environment is everything. Our crown jewel for tourism, recreation, and research. So when Hurricane Irma roared through last fall and punched this giant hole in Shell Key, those who know this island rejoiced.
We're going to go around the front now.
Okay, good.
People like Peter Clark from Tampa Bay Watch.
Wow, look how much erosion they've had on the point there.
His nonprofit closely monitors our marine environment and says this new passage, as you approach from the Gulf side, is flushing the area now with a new influx of millions of gallons of water a day.
So it's great for water quality. It also allows fisheries to move in and out in the northern part, but also people are able to come in and recreate now, when before it was pretty much isolated because of all the shallow water.
When it first broke through, it was only about 50 feet wide, but as you can see now, here 9 months later, it's much wider than that. It's 200 feet wide now and still growing.
But to appreciate this now, you've got to turn the page back a year, when the northern tip of Shell Key here closed off in 2015 from the wind and waves pushing sand to the mainland. It choked off this delicate estuary to the south. The water, it became stagnant. Birds left, seagrass died, and the fishery changed.
My first thought, of course, was Mother Nature seems to know what she's doing.
Jack Coletti runs the website Friends of Shell Key. His nonprofit closely monitors our marine environment. Take a look from above. This photo shows Shell Key as one giant island before the storm. And right here's where we're talking about. This is where Irma cut the island in half. This new passage now flushing the area every day with millions of gallons of new water. And virtually overnight, the estuary behind it was clearer and cleaner.
So yeah, I mean, it seems like a really great thing. I think everybody is universally pleased, but there may still be people who would like to have the northern pass addressed.
Until then, you don't have to look hard to see what's working. All that recirculating water means healthier seagrass and clearer water. We spotted this rare reddish egret feeding in the shallows. Right here, a rare sight until recently. We also happened upon this manatee out for a morning stroll. Also something rarely seen here, until recently. Now, a daily occurrence.
It's all a matter of keeping the ecosystem healthy, or at least helping Mother Nature along so that she can continue to improve.
And improve she is, and impressing along the way.
Because we don't see this every day, right?
No, we certainly don't. Not even in our lifetime sometimes. So this is something very, very special that's occurring right here in our backyard.
So it's a waiting game to see how much erosion they're going to see out there at Shell Island. But one thing's for sure, that opening is still growing. Meantime, everybody knows if you want to catch a tarpon, it's a waiting game for sure. You've got to have patience, but you've also got to have the right gear, and you got to have the right know-how if you really want to find them.
No one has ever wondered why tarpon are called the Silver King. Their reflective beauty and their staggering size, hence of their staggering acrobatic strength. Hook up and you better hold on and enjoy the show.
There's kind of nothing like hooking into a tarpon. Hold on, got a fish.
Captain Chris Wiggins, a St. Pete native,
Tarpon's a pretty big deal.
specializes in these prehistoric beasts. It starts with the bait. Just make sure it's the right bait.
And the greenback has a much greener back. If you see his back, it's a lot more green than this scaled sardine.
In the shadows of the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, the hunt begins. Jordan, our first mate, chums with cut pieces. And these things are like mini cheeseburgers to tarpon.
Everybody likes free cheeseburgers. So basically, you hook one of these baits on here, on your hook, and you drop it in the water right where the chum's at.
Gently feed line out with the current.
And how you tell when you get a bite is your line will start shooting out of your fingers.
And when they hit,
It's kind of like attaching your line to the back of a Corvette and telling the person to floor it.
Woo! Yeah, baby.
Then it's showtime.
Woo! And aside from their incredible size and their strength, the fight is exhilarating. But the other part of the hunt, which is the fun part, is you can't get them year round. They're only here for a few months of the year, and summertime is their peak.
They love Tampa Bay's warm waters and school up on our beaches. Look carefully, and a patch of what you may think is seagrass might just be a moving spool of hungry tarpon.
Awesome.
But they also like our residential canals.
Nice and easy with him here on light leader.
And apparently, they like Captain Chris. They're not camera shy, and this juvenile tarpon has really good aim.
Look at that bigger tarpon eat a bait right there. Did you see me catch him in the net?
So they may not always make it so easy for you,
I hope you got that for TV because that was pretty awesome.
but they will always put on a show and hook you into coming back for more.
So how do you catch up with Captain Chris? Look up Salty Hook Charters. He's on Facebook, or just give him a call. Still to come on Making Waves, students saving lives and changing their own in the process. Welcome back. You know, with Florida's year-round climate, that means many of us can be and will be out on the water, fishing or boating year-round. But let's face it, things don't always go as planned. Thankfully, one very impressive group of students is standing by just in case you need to make that call for help.
When the call comes in,
Rescue dive records are.
the call goes out,
That prescribed response time is 5 minutes.
and these rescuers are on the water and on the move.
We have a high standard of performance.
Students at Eckerd College's Search and Rescue Program at the southern tip of St. Pete, responding to rescue calls on Tampa Bay and in the Gulf.
One of you on the bow line and one of you on the stern line.
Cleared.
Today, they train for tomorrow's marine emergency. They're rescuing a swimmer and learning how to ride a boat, something that's much harder than it looks. And all this is not even a degree program.
Snap!
These students answer this call purely for extra credit and volunteer hours. Ryan Dilkey's their instructor.
Says a lot for the students.
Yes, the type of student that gravitates towards this is predominantly one that wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves.
Students like Rasheen Burke, who came from Connecticut.
Well, this is not your typical extra credit class, right?
No, not at all. Yeah, I'm a business management major, so this is far from what I'm doing in classes, but it's awesome.
And Steve Weekman, all the way from Minneapolis.
It's really good to see a bunch of college students being able to make a difference.
And there's nothing else like it in the country. The only marine rescue program at any college or university in the nation. And they stay busy.
Last year we did 618 calls. We helped over 800 people and rescued $6.2 million in property.
Got to be proud of that.
We're pretty proud of that one.
But they may be proudest of their graduates. They've had a number of high-profile rescues, an emotional night finding the baby thrown off the Skyway, rescuing an elderly couple and their dogs in high seas, putting out boat fires, even recovering an airplane. Life-saving, life-changing experiences for the rescued and the rescuers.
My first case was a missing people search, and that was kind of when I first realized that we're doing real stuff to help people.
Such an effect, it's altered many of their career paths. Several have gone on to careers in law enforcement or emergency management. Many graduates end up in the military. Quite a few end up joining the Coast Guard. As for Steve,
I'm looking into going into Coast Guard right now, actually, which is something I had also never considered until I came onto the team.
and their instructor, also now a member of the Coast Guard Reserve.
And all because of this program.
Yes, absolutely.
Dilkey enrolled as a student 24 years ago. Like the others, just looking for some adventure.
And I loved it so much, I've just stayed with it, became an instructor, and then took over the program in 2006, and I've been here ever since.
You found your home.
I did indeed.
An open-air classroom with a school bell that rings a higher calling.
And that Eckerd team is on call 24/7. They say their goal is to be in the water within 5 minutes of getting that call. Now to a Fox 13 investigation. Many of you know about the toxic algae that's made its way into our lakes and rivers to the south. But now, as Fox 13 investigative reporter Craig Patrick found out, experiments are now showing that toxic algae is in our air as well.
scientists are finding things that could make you sick. For example, 11 years ago, we found a cluster of neurodegenerative disease near Kennedy Space Center. Engineers who were fighting ALS wondered if exposure to rocket fuel may have caused it. But new information is leading scientists to go back and ask questions about something else.
You know, were all these engineers avid sportsmen? Were these people in the water a lot?
Years before the rocket engineers got sick, man-made pollution fed blooms of cyanobacteria in waters across the space coast. And cyanobacteria emit the brain toxin BMAA that scientists now link to diseases like Alzheimer's and ALS.
What happens is the BMAA causes the proteins in your brain neurons to get all tangled up.
We first met Dr. Larry Brand at the University of Miami when he discovered BMAA in South Florida seafood. Then Dr. David Davis started testing dolphins that have been turning up dead.
So we wanted to see if, these dolphins stranded may possibly have the toxin in their system.
His team tested 7 dolphins found floating or beached in Florida and 7 others to our north. 13 of 14 had high concentrations of BMAA in their brains.
It's roughly 1.5 times the amount we see in individuals with advanced dementia.
And those dolphin brains containing BMAA also showed neurodegenerative changes consistent with Alzheimer's.
The presence of BMAA and also neuropathological changes like we see in the dolphins is troubling.
You can see blooms of cyanobacteria, also known as blue-green algae, because it produces green slime or muck in the water. And you can see why scientists say don't touch it or eat stuff caught near it. But new experiments have also revealed BMAA also drifts from the water into our air.
We need to come up with some answers quickly.
Which brings us to the work of Dr. Mike Parsons at Florida Gulf Coast University. When we first met him, his experiments confirmed BMAA was airborne in Cape Coral. His team followed up by testing other places. And yet again, the preliminary results may strike you.
We basically detected it everywhere we've looked.
And that brings us back to a poodle named Finn. He drank blue-green algae from the St. Lucie River and died last year.
I did send some of the deceased dog's brain to the brain chemistry lab in Wyoming.
The scientists sent this email to Finn's owner stating they did find BMAA in Finn's brain.
If it's in his brain, who knows?
While scientists have found a correlation between BMAA and brain diseases, they have not proven a cause and effect.
The scary part is if the levels get elevated to a point where that exposure would overcome our natural defenses.
And what is that level?
We don't know.
And that part may trouble the public and scientists the most.
There is justified concern by the public, and the science is a little behind.
Straight ahead, it's a plastic mangrove hotel.
Basically, yeah.
The Florida scientists making waves with this invention, a potential game changer in the fight against red tide. Welcome back. A Florida marine researcher has spent years on something, a product he's now developed that's gaining worldwide attention. It's basically a cleaning machine that we use in our water that could potentially be a game changer in the fight against red tide. Our water quality is everything, and not just to us, but anyone who lives near our waterways shares some blame. When we built tens of thousands of miles of seawalls, we destroyed natural shorelines that contribute to water quality. The roots of those mangroves we used to have everywhere are the ideal environment for millions of microorganisms that purify the water.
Last 3 years here, we've been kind of finishing up the final.
But David Wolf says he's got a solution. A USF Marine Science grad, he's designed these corrugated plastic PVC reefs. So what do you call this?
This is called the mini reef.
Submerge them under docks, and they replicate root systems, giving millions of microorganisms a place to grab onto and make a new home. This reef's been in the water only about 9 months, and look at all that stuff.
There's room for baby fish to live in there, grow up, baby crabs.
So it's a plastic mangrove hotel.
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
These sponges, sea squirts, and oysters filter the water, and the tiny fish attracted to them do the same, making water quality around them improve in a matter of months.
And once these are fully developed, they say a single unit like this, they've done the research, a single unit can clean and filter more than 30,000 gallons of water every single day.
That's enough water to fill a typical Florida swimming pool. And that's what caught Eric Iverson's attention, making him want to do the same behind his home on Tampa Bay in Coquina Key.
We absolutely wanted to contribute to trying to do what we can, a little bit of something to clean water.
His are a little more than a year now under his dock.
What kind of difference have you seen? Have you seen any difference yet?
We definitely see wildlife everywhere.
And city and county leaders across the state are also taking note. In Marco Island, and now in southern Pinellas.
We're all about clean water, we're all about the environment, and I think David's product works well for Gulfport.
Dennis Frayne is the Director of Marina Operations for the City of Gulfport.
We have a thriving fishing community here, so these will attract fish, crabs, and everything a fisherman needs.
After the red tide outbreak of 2018, he convinced city leaders to purchase and install 20 of these below their city docks because
they would actually feed on the red tide organism?
Well, the larger filter feeders will.
Potentially a red tide game changer.
To clean billions of gallons is hard, but these would definitely help mitigate that somewhat. It would not solve the problem, it would not eliminate the problem, but it would be beneficial for sure.
Up next on Making Waves.
Doesn't this just take your breath away?
A Bay Area shell master who shares his shelling secrets.
Now, a unique hobby that's been around thousands of years, but as you're about to see, shell hunting for some here in the Tampa Bay area is much more than a pastime. It's more like their passion.
Captain Rick Sutton finds solace on the sea.
Look how gorgeous this is. And when it's oiled, it is going to look even shiny and more beautiful than it already is.
He's the leader of a Bay Area movement called shelling.
There's deer season, there's duck season, there's shell season.
Through social media sites like Facebook, shelling has become one of the fastest growing hobbies.
It's definitely addictive. The symptoms are blurry eyes, hunchback, tired shoulders, cold, wet, hungry.
One group called the Shellinators boasts almost 20,000 members and growing.
The question isn't who likes seashells, the question is more like who doesn't like seashells, you know what I'm saying?
On this day, Rick navigates high winds and blue bay waves to take us here, a tiny island normally submerged, but the water has receded to reveal its treasures.
Doesn't this just take your breath away? I mean, isn't this worth preserving and protecting?
As we head out to hunt, something catches Rick's eye.
Well, we're gonna grab this trash real quick. This plastic is our enemy. We pick stuff up, trash. We try to protect this ecosystem. Most of the shellers I know are pretty strong environmentalists also.
We pick our way across the beach.
Florida fighting conch. There are so many beautiful ones out here. Isn't that pretty? This is the state shell of Florida. It's called a Florida horse conch.
And meet up with Rick's mentor.
His name is Thomas Robert Campbell.
What's up, fellas? How you doing?
Known as the Shell Train, if there was a Babe Ruth of shell hunting, he'd be it.
Sometimes a shell becomes common. At first, you pick them up a lot and you're like, eh. So then it becomes a sense of adventure.
And for anyone thinking about shelling, the Shell Train says, beware.
You start following things like the Weather Channel instead of following football games on TV, and before you know it, you're addicted.
And that's what happened to Rick, who now devotes his life to the love of shelling.
I like to teach people about this and teach them to appreciate it and to love nature.
And much of that was shot at Captain Rick's favorite spot, Anclote Key. You can get a charter to take you out there if you want to go, but if you're just looking for a beach where you don't need a boat, he says the best beaches are the ones with the least amount of foot traffic, and he says to make sure you go after a storm or even after low tide. Well, I'm Mark Wilson. Thanks for joining us. Find more on FOX13news.com. Remember, if you're out on the water, stay safe, stay smart, and we leave you with some of the best aerial views of this place we call paradise.